Well, hello and welcome to another episode of More Perfect Marketing. I'm chatting today with a guy named Chris Williams. Now, I got a few things I want to share about Chris before we jump into things, because this is a little intimidating chatting with this guy. First of all, he's into this activity that I don't think most of you have ever done called shark diving. I don't know what the heck that is, but it scares the crap out of me. All right. Ice climbing. He also runs ultra marathons, which, probably is ho-hum compared to those other things. But here's the scariest thing. He's got 5 kids. That's a lot of work. He's also a great knowledgeable guy when it comes to running professional practices. He's worked in the financial services space. And for the last few years, he's been working with business owners, helping them introduce high ticket, high value masterminds and coaching groups. And so we're going to talk a little bit about this idea of high ticket and high value in business in general today. So Chris, welcome.
David, oh my gosh, I'm so stoked to be here. I'm so thrilled to hang out with all of you. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Indeed. Okay, so I'm that I am a proponent of high ticket in as much as we look at most businesses and say, wow, you're giving away your service. You're doing so much and you're not charging enough, right? And it's partially pricing strategy, which I'm sure you have some thoughts on. But there's also, perceived value when it comes to high ticket. I wonder if you can sort of share with me sort of how you got into this high ticket space, because you haven't been in this area forever. What brought you here in the first place?
Well, when I was 11, David.
Okay, I guess I was wrong.
When I was 11, I started cutting grass for my neighbors, like a lot of kids do. And I realized a few years into that I had 3 crews. I hired my first driver when I was 14 because I needed a crew chief. And I realized, I was in a commoditized business. And I went and I was cutting gas stations, I was cutting residential, I was cutting large apartment complexes, doing all the things. And no matter where you went, you were commoditized. It was price, price, price. So I thought, by the time I was in my late teens, I was realizing I see other business models out there where if you're doing the same work that takes the same amount of time, you can charge whatever you want and people don't commoditize it. I just didn't know those fancy words then. And that kind of set me on a path. And I first went down this path of becoming a financial advisor. I owned my own financial planning firm, sold that in 2011. Before that, I worked for a brokerage house. And I realized through that process right after college that sales and selling of any product or service really should be focused around the attraction of the client to you versus us as the vendors going out there chasing the client. When you make that shift, and I know you talk a great deal about that. I totally respect all of that. That shift changes the dynamic and brings a trust value into a conversation that allows commoditization to be pushed out. And all of a sudden, pricing, efficiencies, real actual work you can help people with and change their lives starts to appear because it's not the hustle and grind anymore. It's real help.
I love this concept. There is this, mentality among business owners, and it's an easy default, right? Race to the bottom. Let's compete on price. And while it's, low prices there's nothing wrong with it. And I was just on a mastermind call where somebody was telling us about his low price strategy to get a relationship started, but then he charges a heck of a lot more once the relationship is established. There is something to be said for using this as a differentiator, which is what you've just described. It's not easy to do in a sort of general commoditized business. You can't just suddenly take that crew of, kids mowing the lawns and say, now it's not, I don't know what you were charging, but, we're tripling our prices and suddenly, people are going to perceive the value more. You have to add something more to what you're delivering, but not necessarily in tandem with the pricing. So how do you approach that?
what ultimately went to this model of consultative approaching every one of our client groups, every model we ever build from now on. And we've been doing that for 10 years. I'd say 15 years. Everything we do is led by a consultative approach, because when you move yourself away from the product or service, that the done for you part, done with you part, Amazon shipped part, to let's just step back. Let me get to know you and see how I can help you. How can we design a plan that works best for you? All of a sudden, you're out of all of the competitive pricing models and you're into just this wide open space of actually helping someone. And the cool thing about that is people buy that easier than a low cost competitive item, because they're buying your trust, your expertise, your skill set, your history, your knowledge base, whatever. They're buying that. You can't put a price on that, but people can feel when it's real. And that's a really big shift to make. And once you make that shift, all of a sudden you're off to the races with initial offers, initial conversations that are probably more profitable than the thing you're actually going to end up implementing on the back end anyway.
Mm. So were you doing this sort of thing when you were positioning yourself against all of the other financial planners, financial advisors out there?
Oh
Can
yeah.
you walk us through? Because I know you were early on in what is now becoming much more common,
Mhm.
something called fee only advising, pricing structure, rather than taking a percentage of the investment. Can you walk us sort of through the structure that you followed in terms of how you built that practice?
Yep, absolutely. We went straight towards a consultative approach again. So we were just focused on bringing the right client and taking them away from the noise. Let's just talk about the financial planning and services space now. Taking them away from the noise of every broker dealer calling them, all the insurance agents calling them, everybody trying to cram a product or a package that had a fee structure involved or whatever, to just, hey, let's step away from that. And a client, you can sit in our conference room and be completely honest and open about everything, because there's nothing we're going to pull out of the file cabinet that has a commission number on it. It's just going to simply be us sitting there as experts, listening to what you're saying and saying, here's a strategy you could work for the next 10 years that would be really practical and beneficial for you. And you could go get those products and services, if there's any on there, anywhere you like. We're here to make sure you're doing the right thing, not our thing. You can take that conversation, David, into any industry. And here's the magic sauce. If there's any like little magic wand sprinkle we got to put on this thing, it's being in a very well-defined niche. Because once you niche down and you let people know, like for instance, in our financial planning world, we only work with we worked with 100 families. We always had a 100 family cap. You had to have a certain level of income, certain level of investable assets, certain number of kids, certain issues of trust, all those kind of things like trust estate issues. We had qualifications. So when somebody was in our office, they knew we're not just the average person. We're actually specialists in their specific area. And that right there, that trumps everything else, because you got what I need. And you're the only person that I can find on the planet who's got exactly what I need. And that's a really powerful message.
Now, you've taken this concept to another business as well. You're serving a super specific, I'll say niche, but apparently in both Canada and Tennessee, they say niche. So I'll give you to you. Go ahead. You want to talk a little bit about what you're doing in the surgery practices business?
Yeah. Oh, we'll meet in the middle. We'll say target market. How about that?
Okay.
Okay. So in the target market we serve, we work with surgeons in subspecialties that are in elective cash pay procedures. Okay. Surgeons, subspecialty surgeons, elective cash pay procedures only. That's things like bariatric surgery, cosmetic surgery, plastic surgery, things where people get to decide, I want to make a change in my life in some way, and I'm going to have to pay cash because my insurance doesn't cover it, but I need a high-end surgeon to do the thing. All right. That's an elective cash pay procedure for a surgeon. Now, we went into that space, not like, oh, let's just define the market and run down that path. It was an intentional evolution. And I think everyone should go through this in whatever practice you have, whatever service model you're in. Every year, we still do this. We identify our top 20% of our customer base based on a couple of criteria. How much profit do we get out of them? That sounds so horrible, but just call it what it is, folks. How much profit do you make, right? How much time does it take for you and your team to execute to get that profit? And do you and your team actually like working for them? You got to love your job. So money, time, and fun. Super straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
The top 20% every year we look at, we have a grid, we measure that. And we sit down and we say, okay, what makes these top 20 the best? Let's say it's 20 people, just to pick easy numbers. What makes these 20 clients the best clients? Is it their stage in life? Is it the kind of practice? Is it the part of the country they live in? The type of offering they have? The type of staff they have? What is it? And then we only take on new clients, ask for referrals, market for, look for new clients with that same pattern that the previous year's top 20 had. So every year we get significantly more profitable, get more efficient, and weed out the clients we don't enjoy working with. It's like so easy, and nobody does the discipline work to follow that pattern. We've done that in our financial planning firm. We've done it in our practice management and creative marketing firm for surgeons. And we do it in the masterminds that we teach, teaching experts how to build high ticket masterminds. We do the same practice.
All right, I want to repeat what I just heard, because this is really interesting. Most of us in the marketing space talk about narrowing your target market. I was going to say niching down or niching down, right? Narrowing your target market so that you can more effectively get the right messaging in front of that prospect, right? Because the elective surgery, fee, I don't even remember the phrase you used. They have a distinct set of needs, problems, challenges that somebody who is doing surgery, as a in a hospital group or something is not going to have, right? Mm-hmm. But you've introduced an additional element to it, which is that it simplifies the deliverable. It simplifies the work that you're doing on their behalf, because you're working basically on the same product, same project, the same systems over and over for different clients who are hopefully not in the same market, not competitive. And so it simplifies your work. It increases the perceived value and real value, I'm sure, to the clients as well. Mm-hmm. I think that's brilliant, because
it's business.
It's I love that.
Business is made up of a couple of things. There's think of it. This is how I think of it, in zones. For all of you listening in, if you're not watching, think of 3 zones: a beginning, a middle, and an end zone. The beginning zone of the client journey is always the marketing, the outreach, the sales, whatever you want to call it, that entire first process. Once they say yes and write a check or swipe the Stripe account or whatever it is, then you got workflow. That workflow is everything in the middle. And then the workflow is done. All right. Then you have the third set, which is getting referrals, maybe keeping that client and upselling to a next thing, continuing something, more relationships, more business, right? There's that third set. Every one of those sections is as important as any of the other sections. They all have to go together to make a complete business work. And you're right, David. Most of us think about that first section as being the place where that niche, or target market is well-defined because of marketing and messaging. But if you think about all the processes, the team members, the virtual staff members, the outsourcing partners you use for all the deliverables in the middle, if you only worked with an exact copy of the same kind of client over and over and over again, everything gets so much easier. And a brand new team member from another country who has a poor English skill set doesn't have to wonder, what do I do with the third client I work with? Because it was just like the first and second client they worked with. And then when you go to the third set of this whole business continuum, you got continuing upsells, whatever, or referral building and asking for more opportunities. It's the same conversation. And the cool thing about it is the client you prospected to in the first set and sold to and delivered on, they know a bunch more people just like themselves, because we're herd animals, and they go play golf with the same people like themselves. And so they know everybody you want to prospect to next.
That's awesome. And you're so right. This is actually, as you probably know, the stuff that we teach our clients and agencies to make sure that they're doing on behalf of their clients too. So that is brilliant insight into how to build an effective referral program that most people never think about. And it's simply by refining who you're serving in the first place makes it so
Mhm.
much easier to get referrals. I love
It
that.
is.
Yeah.
You know, you're David here in the back. If y'all are listening in the background of David, if you're ever watching him, he's got this whiteboard back there with this awesome process. It's basically everything I just described. It's so fantastic the way he's like got a traction model and it's the workflow. It's all there. You know, David, the referral thing. Here's how we communicate that when people are prospects, when we're doing the workflow and we're asking for referrals. We say, you know, we have a dinner club or we call it a yacht club, one of the two. Let's go dinner club. David, we got this dinner club. We have 20 seats at the table. And so mentioned that you would be awesome in this dinner club. But obviously, in any dinner club, the conversation, the connection, the viewpoints, it's got to be well crafted. So we're here to talk about like if we should put you at our table. And by the way, you're not going to starve if you don't work with us. There's plenty of other places you could work with. But if you're going to be at our table, we want to have a really intentional conversation about what this looks like because we only have one seat available right now. And it's so important that we don't have a negative impact on the rest of the 19 superstars that are at that table. That's our practice initial conversation for when we're talking to a new prospect. We flip the script. They're now convincing us that they should be at the party. When we're at the party, the workflow set, we're passing around the same dish because we've already confirmed that everybody likes lasagna. Easy, right? That's part of the initial part. When we're done with the party and we have somebody who's leaving the party, we got 2 new seats to fill. We're asking them, hey, you know, we have this private dinner party. You're the best person we've ever had at the table. We'd like to have another person just like you. Can we talk about that? And they always say, absolutely, would love to help you pick the next one. And we fill the seat up fast.
So you're setting expectations, you're delivering, you're then developing the relationship in a way that they know that, well, this is how things are done around here, and so they're not surprised by that ask at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to shift gears a little bit because we've talked about professional services, we've talked about your service based business, and this is applicable to so many other business models. These days, you're working on helping business owners and leaders in the group coaching or group masterminding
Mm-hmm.
space. How did you get into that, and how does that work?
You know, David, I realized probably like you did a while back when all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, this model that we've been doing works. We could help other people adopt this same model because it'll work for them too. That's what you guys do so well is you help people with a model that you've proven actually works. Awesome. We were doing the same thing, except for in a different genre. So we were running our the financial firm sold that. Then we were running this creative firm for these surgeons, bringing them high ticket cash pay patients. That took me about 16 hours a day early on. Great team. We were making money. Then I read this crazy book called The 4 Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. Everybody's read it. Nobody's done it. I read it the first time and I was like, that's a cool book. I'm going to try this. So I read it the second time and diagrammed the whole thing, every step he said to do. And I did it. And in 4 months, I went from 16-hour days down to 4-hour days, not 4-hour work week yet, but 4-hour days. And it quadrupled our income. We weren't trying to grow. I was just trying to get my life back, but it quadrupled our income. 5 months later, I was down to 2 hours a week. Now I work about an hour and a half a week in that business. So our first mastermind was not teaching people what you do, how to prospect and build a system and like have never ending leads and always consistent cash flow. It's brilliant. We were just teaching people basically how to implement the 4-hour work week. So we've launched a mastermind. We taught a mastermind of 15 people who were also creative agency owners, teaching them how to get their life back. And we put those people in the same Zoom room. And every week we'd meet. I would show them exactly how I'd implement it. They'd go do their homework, implement it. And in a few months, they were down to half days, just like me. And that was not me thinking, oh, I want to get into the mastermind business. It was me realizing that I had tried to take my information. I had created courses, books, VSLs, 3-part video series, all that stuff, and tried to sell everything. And it wasn't working. And so finally, I went to a mastermind by a great marketer named Russell Brunson. And I skipped all the low ticket value ladder stuff in Russell's world. And I went straight to his mastermind because I knew some friends in there. So they got me in. And they, in 30 minutes in that meeting, they were like, introducing ourselves, and they finally got to me and they're like, Chris, so how's your mastermind? I was like, it's great. I've been enjoying meeting you guys. It's great. And like, no, how's the one you lead? I was like, I don't lead a mastermind. I'm trying to sell e-courses like you guys. Oh no, dude. We all started with a high ticket mastermind, sold it organically, proved the concept, got paid. And then with that resource and education went and built all the low ticket stuff. And since then, all we do now is teach people how to build high ticket masterminds. We shifted 100% to that a while back.
And so if you wanted to stay in that group, you had to put up, right?
Yeah.
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 So,
It was my first experience in an expensive high ticket mastermind. And it was a life changer for me. I realized I'm never going to learn another way. And since then, I've only joined masterminds. I've never hired a one-on-one coach again.
I got introduced to this idea probably when I, like many people, first read the Napoleon Hill book.
Yeah.
Right? Think and Grow Rich, and how the wealthy folks, the Robert barons of the day were sort of leveraging each other's brilliance by helping sort of think through different things, and that's where the concept got introduced. I've been through several masterminds. Some are amazing. You get exposed to some brilliant minds. Many are not, just like anything else out there, right? And for me, I've sort of figured out the formula that I need, which is to not be the smartest guy in the room, number one, right? To be humble enough to share. There are things not working in my world, and I'm looking for guidance from people who have been there and done that and solved it. And with just like with coaching, I imagine, be willing to listen and then put stuff into place. So I'm curious, having been through this yourself, now teaching others how to implement it, what makes for a good mastermind?
Group selection. Believe it or not, it's not yours truly. If you're in my mastermind, it's not that I'm genius, because I'm really not. I'm really not. It really comes down to, I know how to build masterminds. So people join my group for that reason. I wanted to learn how to build this whole funnel setup and learn how to sell information. So I joined Russell Brunson's group, right? He's the genius at that, right? But Russell taught me the same thing. It's not him. He hardly says anything in the masterminds. Russell's really good at putting the right people in the room. And that's what I had to become good at. It was all about group selection. It's not about me, the host. We let 15 people at a time in our masterminds. It's about me putting the right people in the room. So my team and I spend more than half of our time just screening through the people to make sure that the dinner table has the perfect guest set. Because when that happens, it's magic and everybody wins, because that collective brain power of experiences and personalities and opportunities takes everybody up so many levels so fast. I just simply officiate the process.
So okay, you're basically curating a group of people, making sure. And as you were saying this, I was thinking about like a good selective college admissions process, where they have to balance the class that's coming in. They have too many applicants to fill every slot that they have open, and they want to make sure that they have a nice balance, both financially and what are these kids going to all contribute to the experience for each other. And that's a much bigger scale than just 15, but you're doing that. And then, if I heard you correctly, you're also positioning it so that people are not having to be sold on the idea, but rather that they are applying to qualify, which is what you were doing, when you described the dinner party earlier. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah. So we never, in fact, I was just looking at our pipeline. We don't have any seats available till September. We're recording this for those of you who are listening later, and we're recording this on April 28th, 2022. We don't have any seats available right now until September. And we have 54 people applying for 15 seats. And we've done zero paid traffic, marketing, et cetera. It's all organic. But here's why. And anybody listening, if you want to build a mastermind, you can do the same thing. You got to find the thing that your audience wants to really accomplish. And you got to make that happen. So in our groups, we fill mastermind seats and launch masterminds. Here's what we've done. We've made referral generation and leads so easy because of the people we put in the room together, that if you're at the table, you're going to fill up your first mastermind just on referrals from that room. We have a rule in our masterminds. You can only sell half of your mastermind seats from referrals from the group, because we got to teach you how to market. So, and sell and all this stuff. So it's easy to sell our seats because what people really want, leads and closed deals for their mastermind. We like hand that out on a silver platter. So every mastermind that any of you decide to lead, you got to have the right people in the room that will accomplish the big primary goals of the people who want to be in the room. You got to decide what that is for you and only invite people who can accomplish that.
Okay, so what I hear here is that there is specificity to what the mastermind is promising, right?
Everybody's
So
different. Yep.
a general mastermind about, hey, let's get a bunch of great people together and we'll talk about stuff that's happening and see how we can help each other. That's not going to cut it,
No.
right? There has to be specificity involved here.
Mm-hmm.
So give me a few examples of the type of specificity that works with a mastermind, and maybe one that doesn't.
There are two broad types of masterminds. And by the way, folks, I'm excluding everybody who has an e-course that has 100 or 2,000 people in there, and the coach shows up once a month and there's a Facebook group. That is an e-course with a coach attached to it. That's not a mastermind. Let's just be super clear. A mastermind is a smallish group, like 10, 15, 20 people with an expert guide, taking a small group of committed people to the same location, same trajectory, whatever. Two broad types of real masterminds out there. Some that are more tactical, like we're trying to go from A to B to C to D in our business, our life. It could be health and wellness, relationships, business, whatever. We're all here at this point and we want to all accomplish this together. Very diverse backgrounds, but we have the same goals. The other type is more of a relational networking mastermind. We actually lead two masterminds, one of each. That relational set is a little more vague to people who haven't been in that space before. It's people who are already accomplished and very successful at their thing. In our case, it's a bunch of high-end coaching, mastermind, national speakers, authors, whatever. And they want to get together not to learn how to crack the code. They're not looking for ABC. They've already got all that. They're looking for relationships and opportunities and connections. That group meets on a more infrequent basis, but the relationships and the skill sets of those people, they help each other make huge leaps in different places in the market. So there's two broad types of masterminds, a tactical versus a relational. And you kind of need to define that when you're thinking through what kind of mastermind do I want to build?
Okay. We're talking to a lot of business owners here on this podcast, and many business owners are thinking, why the heck would I even want to create a mastermind? Is it to position my business to my clients better? Is it to one of the things that I learned early on, you mentioned Russell Brunson. He recently bought a company that was started by a guy named Dan Kennedy.
Yeah, you mentioned Dan a minute ago. I thought of Russell.
And Bill Glazer, which I think these days it's changed its name so many times. It's called Magnetic Marketing, and
another guy I know just bought Twitter. Everybody's buying stuff, right?
Another guy I know, yeah.
Oh, whatever. Yeah, I wish.
so the thing that they taught, and I learned this probably, I don't know, a decade or more ago, is you're in a business where you're providing a service or selling a product, but there's a lot of other folks out there who are in your industry who could benefit from the knowledge you've gained. And that's like the go-to solution for me in terms of what am I going to build a mastermind around? Well, to show other people who are going through the same journey that I've gone through, how I did it, and then get them to teach each other all the sort of golden nuggets that they've learned along the way as well.
Mm-hmm.
What
exactly right.
What are your thoughts on that? And I hesitate to say, I said how I did it, but in fact, you've just said it's not about the host, so maybe that shouldn't be about it. It's right. Maybe I leveraged my success to get them in the door.
Right. But that's the start. And truly, if you're hosting an amazing dinner party and it's at your house and you're in charge of the meal, people showing up do want to hang out with everybody else at the table, but they really hope you can cook. So it's important for you, the host, to have that expertise you just mentioned. And you've got that, right? Everybody listening in, you've got that. You've got the expertise. You might think, because your whole career has been this way, I have to turn out a certain number of widgets or services or whatever to make a buck. Cool. But truly, that's not your highest skill set. You figured out how to do it. That's worth so much more than doing it. So if you step back from your business on a Friday afternoon, sit on the porch with a cup of coffee, go to the park, whatever you need to do, and just think about not what do I do, but what's the intellectual property side of how I actually got where I am today? What are all the lessons that I take for granted that somebody 20 years like earlier on in the process would be like, if I could just skip 20 years of what you just went through, I'd pay you $20,000. Think about that. Write it down, sketch out ideas, because that is a serious money-making idea that takes very little time to produce and pays for a long, long time.
I love the idea of thinking about somebody who's 20 years behind where you are now, or the earlier version of yourself, for example.
Mhm.
We're about out of time, but I want to make sure that this brilliance doesn't end here. That if folks are interested in learning more about the stuff that you're doing to help, you know, them or others like them become effective in the mastermind space, that they know where to find you and learn more from
Absolutely.
you.
Yeah, if you're curious, here's where to go. Group Coach Nation. Just Google Group Coach Nation or type in groupcoachnation.com. At groupcoachnation.com, we have a very simple process for you to define, are you a beginner, an advanced, or a pro when it comes to thinking through and actually taking action on selling your expertise in the form of a high ticket offer like this. We don't want your email address. We don't collect any data on you. We just want you to get started. So you define if you're a beginner, advanced, or a pro. Like, we have so much free information for you to learn to take action and start down the process of formulating a plan. And that's what we're all about.
I love that. I'm sitting on the website right now. I see there's no retargeting pixel on it. There's no. That's great. I love it. It's rare for somebody in the marketing space to not do that, but it's refreshing. And you've explained why you don't need to as well, right? You
Yeah.
you got a line out the door and around the corner, and that's a great place for many businesses to be in. And kudos to you for being in that position.
Mm. Thanks, man. It's so good to be here, David, and everybody listening in. Like, obviously, you found your person, David, your guy. Like, ask questions. You probably have 100 questions coming up right now, maybe top 3. Write them down on a sticky note, and however you reach out to David, like, reach out, ask him those questions. If it's about today's topic or a previous topic, because like, he's the guy who's cracked a code, and you in your own space, you listener right now, you've cracked a code. All you got to do is make sure people around you can ask that question, and you'll find out how to serve people. And it's such an awesome opportunity. So David, thanks for letting me be here.
Indeed, that was shared like a pro facilitator. Thanks, Chris. I appreciate that. So this has been Chris Williams from groupcoachnation.com. Thank you for joining me. And folks, this has been another episode of More Perfect Marketing. I hope to have you back here again for another episode real soon. Take care.